Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Listen to that music. How is that for a beginning to Everything Old is New Again? I'm Douglas Viviani with the rather nefarious David Cohen. How are you doing, young Dan?
What is that supposed to mean, Douglas?
We will find out throughout the next hour as we discuss great movies you have never seen, subcategories, science fiction, and thrillers. We continue our exam of these great movies because, let's face it, there's got to be hundreds of thousands of movies out there, and we at Everything Old is New Again want to now participate in our culture as opposed to just observing and commenting upon. So we're going to reach into the bag of tricks and pull out a few movies that are in the science fiction and thriller genre and suggest them to be watched, because these are great movies that you have never seen. What do you think?
Yes, you've seen them and should see them again. So here we go. We're giving back to society.
Yes, we're going to do our best. And that beginning was the eerie sound of the beginning of Forbidden Planet. If you haven't seen this movie and you're a science fiction fan, and if you haven't seen it and you're not a science fiction fan, it is for you. Trust me, it's for all. It's a little takeoff on The Tempest, which is a...
what if you've seen it and you are a science fiction fan?
You will recognize many, many elements of the future.
And if you've seen it and
fiction.
Not a science fiction fan?
And if you've not, then you will become a science fiction fan as a result of this movie. Any other questions?
Just covering all the possibilities there.
Let's listen to the trailer and we'll see what the heck it's about.
Imagine yourself as one of the crew of this faster-than-light spaceship of the future, sharing their curiosity to know the unknown, their tension, their readiness for inconceivable adventure.
Sir, we're being radar scanned.
United Planets cruiser C-57D, J.J. Adams commanding. Who are you?
Morbius of the Bellerophon. Commander, if you set down on this planet, I warn you that I cannot be answerable for the safety of your ship or your crew.
The wonders of the planet Altair 4 conceal a strange and evil force, unknown, irresistible.
Sounds like my appetite, the unknown and irresistible force. Anyway.
So you're going to tell me about this. I have not seen this movie.
Yes.
But every time I hear a science fiction movie from the 50s, they all sound the same in the trailer, right?
Well, but this one is the grandfather of, I'm going to tell you, of Star Trek.
It's the grandfather.
Lost in Space, Star Wars. I'm going to prove it to you right now.
Really?
Just to begin with. Clip 3, if you have a moment there, I want to compare the different federations that they're representing.
Sir, we're being radar scanned.
United Planets cruiser C-57D, J.J. Adams commanding. Who are you?
You wish you could tell them all that this alliance will give birth to the Federation.
So in Star Trek is the United Federation of Planets. In Forbidden Planet, it is the United Planets. That was Leslie Nielsen, by the way, as the captain, the first one.
Oh, speaking in that voice?
Yes, and he's from 1956 version of Leslie Nielsen. Before
they all spoke like that in 1956. Come in, I can't hear you.
It was the first time they were using the communicator. Let's see why it's the grandfather of Star Trek. Listen, see if you remember this episode.
His brain is gone. His body lives. The autonomic functions continue. But there is no mind. We'll have to take him with us. Take him where? In search of his brain, Doctor. Where are you going to look for Spock's brain? What have you done with Spock's brain? You have his brain. Go ahead, Doctor. Put the teacher on. Of course. A child could do it. Dr. McCoy is proceeding to restore Spock's brain.
Never seen anything like it. He's operating at warp speed.
I mean, that is the worst episode of Star Trek. But it was clearly influenced by the teacher, which is a headset that Dr. McCoy puts on and garners knowledge from. That was not a unique idea. That was something that was
in the Forbidden Planet.
In the Forbidden Planet. I'm going to show you a really quick clip.
This is just one of their laboratories. Now, you can see that this headset was designed for something much bulkier than my human cranium.
That's the same exact thing. I can go on and on about it with these clips, but that's a headset that's used by the Krell on the Forbidden Planet. Now, let's get into Forbidden Planet. Before we do, though, I wanted to talk about Spock's brain. Did you hear how upset McCoy was, how aggravated he was in the beginning?
Damn it, Jim,
I mean, he's a cantankerous son of a gun, right?
Yeah.
And then he puts the headset on and gets knowledge, and he's all, oh, it's a child's play. I can do it. And he's all calm, cool, and collected. So right there is a representation of how the knowledge of man can overcome the emotion. And you...
okay, I kind of see a connection there. I thought you were going to say in Forbidden Planet they're looking for someone's brain. To me, that would have been a clearer precursor, but... No,
they're not.
Something about a headset.
They're using the teacher to garner knowledge. Now, I'll tell you, because what happens is Morbius then uses that. Morbius is the gentleman that's on the planet that crash landed.
A gentleman.
Yes. He's a gentleman. And he created Robbie the Robot from using that headset. And Robbie the Robot, if you remember him, had a little battle with the Lost in Space robot on Lost in Space.
You are obviously of a very primitive design. From now on, I will serve the Robinsons. In all ways, I am superior to you. Your efforts will be denied by me. I am very strong. I can stop you. I am armed not only with superior mental powers, but superior weapons as well. There can be no fight between us. It would not be a contest. You need a small demonstration of my powers.
Robbie the Robot right there is one of the first robots, and he was so successful. He was used all throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s. We went through this on our prior show talking about robots on television. But Robbie the Robot was a phenomenon when Forbidden Planet came out. The artificial intelligence, and certainly influenced Lost in Space and the creation of B4 there.
Okay, so the movie where they talk funny, what's it called? Forbidden Planet?
Yes.
Influential on a lot of future TV shows and movies.
Not only that, influential on Star Wars, which is really something.
Really?
Yes. I'll tell you.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
Remember that scene?
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. Of course I remember that scene.
Remember where it took place?
They were at a football game, weren't they? I don't know.
This huge hallway.
Yes.
Maybe he's out on this little spigot with he got his hand cut off,
Right.
And they're out in this little spigot. Who knows why that's there? To clean the windows or something. I don't know. And if you look down, it's miles and miles apparently of machine. And if they didn't have a look up, but it's the same thing. It was on the Death Star.
Right.
And that whole mat, they call it a mat when you draw that kind of a thing on a movie. And you're looking at all this machinery and all this landscape that's exactly taken right out of the Forbidden Planet holes of the living machines.
You travel deep down into the heart of the Forbidden Planet to discover the incredible marvels of this lost genius race. These magnificent scenes stagger the imagination.
Look down, gentlemen, are you afraid? 7,800 levels.
All right, there it is. We're going to listen to the Forbidden Planet theme and discuss this issue right after we hear this eeriness once again. On Everything Old is New Again. On back. Anyway, so you see that there are similarities, but more than that, the story itself on Forbidden Planet, when you dig into it, is more than all this stuff. The story is a story of the battle of the ego versus the id. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
You have an ego, of course, yourself when you're alive and conscious, right? And when you're asleep or in your subconscious, you have an id. It's Sigmund Freud's discussion.
Right.
It's what happens in The Tempest with Shakespeare.
Happens during the show sometimes.
Exactly.
The id comes out.
and there's a battle between the two.
Sometimes the yid comes out.
Especially if you're imitating, the older, Spider-Man, that kind of a thing. You remember that episode of Everything Old is New
Luke,
Again?
I'm your father.
But that's what this is about. And
is it a good movie, though?
It's a great movie because it's a study in the psychology of the mind. And when you're doing one thing logically, but when all of a sudden your emotions come forward or suppressed, as we were talking about with McCoy, the reverse of that, if your emotions are suppressed by the intelligence, sometimes the emotion has to have some way of coming and manifesting itself out. And in here, in science fiction, that emotion manifests itself in an invisible being, monster that threatens all of the people on the Forbidden Planet.
All right.
How does that sound?
That's more interesting.
And how do you defeat that? How do you defeat someone's ego, someone's id?
Lasers?
Lasers don't do
Rocks?
it. Nope.
No.
The answer lies within the psychology of man. And we'll be right back.
What the heck does that mean? Of man. What is this, 1954?
Yeah, 56.
When mankind...
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Rocket Man. Burning out his fuse out here, alone. I think it's going to be a long, long time till touchdown bring me round again and find I'm not the man they think I am.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again, and we're continuing our theme of science fiction and later on thriller movies that are great
and you
movies
haven't
that you've not seen them. Right. William Shatner is introducing us to the topic in this section with his rendition of Rocket Man.
Why did he do that?
I don't
and didn't he do Sgt. Pepper also?
Yeah, he did. He did a whole album.
Why?
Well, I'll tell you why.
It was the 60s, I guess.
It was the early 70s. It was after Star Trek was over. There were no movies on the horizon. He was basically destitute. The show did not give him enough money. He got divorced. He was, again, living out of his car. And,
really?
Yeah, and he had no way
He was living out of his car after Star Trek?
A couple years after, yeah.
We got to do a show about that.
I'd love to get him on the show to explain all this to us. I'm going to work on that.
Call me, Doug. Call me now. I'm here.
But the fascination with Shatner, of course, with Everything Old is New Again, and Star Trek is ever present. We'll see that all the time. But it's not just me. There's a movie that you really will have a lot of fun watching, fan or no, of science fiction called Free Enterprise. It is a movie that was labeled a romantic comedy, and it was from 1999. Let's just listen to a little bit of the introduction to that so we get an idea.
Since Mark was a boy, and since Robert was a boy, they've worshipped one man.
The Laurence Olivier of the airways.
What are you doing here?
I'm one of the top 10 imaginary friends kids have, just behind John Travolta, Reggie Jackson, and Farrah Fawcett Majors.
But...
oh my God.
They're about to discover...
Mr. Shatner, I would like to say that I think you are the greatest American actor ever.
I'm a Canadian.
That their lifelong hero...
Now, I've got an idea.
...is definitely not of this world.
The man I idolized since I was 2 turns out to be a raving loon.
Ouch.
So already you got to be hooked a little bit. I mean,
so what is it about? It's
two guys that are. We've done shows on this. The nerd or the geek. They're geeks for Star Trek. They love Star Trek. And their idol is William Shatner. They finally run into him.
This is a story about you.
It could be a story about me for sure. They run into him in a local library, and they profess that they're part of the industry, and they kind of talk themselves up. And Shatner buys it and presents to them the fact that he wants to do a musical based upon William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar.
Really?
It's absolutely ridiculous, and he'll play all the parts, by the way. This is the most ridiculous thing ever, but it's also a love story, a little geek fantasy happens where there's a pickup of a young lady in a comic book store, and that relationship develops. Let's just listen to how it starts.
Come on, you read Sandman?
Yep. And I also read Astro City, Grendel, Cerebus, Bond, Preacher, Legion of Superheroes, among others. Do you have a problem with that?
No, it's just that you're a girl. I don't suppose it would mean anything to you to know that I have the Japanese import box set of all 5 Planet of the Apes on Laserdisc, letterboxed.
What about your home theater system?
Dolby Digital 5-track surround with a 40-inch screen.
Not bad.
I have Amigo Isis action figure.
Almighty Isis?
The very same.
She's writing down, giving him his
her phone number
on a comic book, rare comic book. They has to buy for $60 so he can take the phone number home. But
funny.
To find a young lady in a comic book store and one that likes the things that you like, I mean, that was the geek fantasy, and that was, it goes on from there. And it's just fun. I don't want to give the whole story away. It's fun. It introduces you if you're not familiar with geekdom around Star Trek, and it's not just focused on that. It's a romantic comedy.
Free Enterprise.
Free Enterprise. You really will get a kick out of it. Let's go one step beyond and go into a movie that I find of being a bit of a thriller and sci-fi, The Abyss.
Just listen to me for one second. Now, you've got the suit on, and you're a much better swimmer than I am, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Right? Yes. So I've got a plan.
What's the plan?
I drowned and you tow me back to the rig.
No.
Yes, this water.
No.
We're a couple of degrees above freezing. Like, go into deep hypothermia. My blood will go like ice water. My body systems will slow down. They won't stop.
Vince.
You tow me back and I can be revived after maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Vince, put this on.
Minutes.
You put it on.
It's the only way. You just put this on.
Now, that's The Abyss. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio and Ed Harris from 1989. And James Cameron wrote and directed that before
he was James Cameron.
Before he was James Cameron, right. After Terminator. So he was James Cameron, but before the Titanic and his excursion. Right. He has a fascination with underwater. This whole episode or movie takes place underwater. And that is the scene that we just heard there is a scene where they're in a little submarine that crashes and can't survive, and it's got water leaking into it. They have one underwater outfit that will supply air to human beings. So one of them has to basically die in order to survive, let the other one survive, and the surviving one is going to come and drag Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio back to the home base to try to revive her since the water is so cold. It's amazing. That scene is so dramatic when you see that. You actually see her die and go through all of that.
Wow.
And I'm not going to tell you if she survives it, but that's not the only thing about this movie that's amazing, but the acting is beyond belief. That Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, I don't know if you're familiar with, I think she is tremendous. I don't know where she disappeared to. Last I saw her, she was on Broadway singing on A Man from La Mancha about, I'm going to say 2010 or 8, thereabouts. Tremendous voice. Unbelievable.
And Ed Harris is a great actor. So.
Yeah. So the acting, but now beyond that, there's a story here of aliens that are deep down in the ocean, and they're ready to allow us as human beings destroy ourselves with the nuclear war that's going on. And Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio and Ed Harris profess and show their love of each other beyond the scene we just saw in another episode. And the aliens see that the way they presented themselves and the way that love can overcome evil, if you will, and they I'm not going to ruin the movie, but they do something that is unexpected. The movie is like 170 minutes long with the special edition. You've got to do the whole. You got to watch the whole thing. You can't watch. It's
like a miniseries.
They cut out some really good parts for the movie theater. So you've got to go dig in and get the long extended version. Get yourself lunch and dinner. Watch this movie. It's a love story. It's a thriller,
science fiction,
sci-fi. It's got everything.
Comedy.
There's a little comedy in it too. Absolutely, little comedy in it. There's it's a little something for everybody. I think it's
for
terrific.
Everybody.
Well, maybe
5-year-old,
maybe not my 5-year-old, but 3-year-old. But there's enough there to dig your teeth into. Trust me, I really enjoy this movie.
This is good. I have movies to watch now. I don't have to scroll around Netflix and not find anything and shut the TV off in frustration.
Oh man, if you dig into The Abyss, I really want to hear from someone that hasn't seen this movie that didn't like it, that watched it all the way through and watched the director's version, the longer one, which has meaning to it. In other words, there's an ending here that they cut out some things. You don't understand what's going on.
Oh, really?
When you watch,
so you got to get the director's cut.
And that's why the movie failed. Because they took this 15 minutes out.
Interesting.
And it was a $70 million budget. They only made $90 million. If they would have taken this version,
you think
now
the 15 extra minutes would have made the difference?
Absolutely. Explains everything. Otherwise, You're like, what is this nonsense? What just went on? Like, I was disappointed when I first saw it. When I saw the cut with the 15 minutes explaining what's going on, and you'll see what I mean when you see this.
Okay.
It fills you with explanation. Why did I sit here all this time? Besides the sci-fi,
so it's got some satisfaction. The answers you're looking for, and then it brings a good
thrills,
closure to it.
Adventure, romance,
adventure. Do they speak like this in the movie?
You sound like that. And the guy that introduced, by the way, Free Enterprise sounds like that disembodied voice that introduces us.
No.
Yes. And now it's time for Free Enterprise. Starring William Shatner, introduced by the disembodied voice. Speaking of which, we'll be back. Listen to a little more Shatner. Everything old is new again.
5 days a week. Rocket. A rocket, man.
Say, Charlie, why the arm in the sling?
Yeah, I walked straight into that busted street sign in front of Frank's Automat.
Well, you must have been really sore at him.
You said it, pal. I said, say, what's a big idea of making a fella trip out there? I was gonna sock him right in the kisser.
He's all wet. Why, you ought to sue him, Charlie.
I have half a mind to do just that. But where am I gonna get that kind of dough?
Say, I know a fella just got me out of a big jam, and he didn't break the bank.
You don't say.
Yeah, the law office of Douglas Viviani.
The law office of Douglas Viviani?
That's right, the law office of Douglas Viviani.
Viviani.
That's what I said, Viviani.
He a straight shooter?
He's a cat's meow.
He's on the up and up?
Doug's ace is with me.
Is that so?
He's a bee's knees.
Well, that's just swell. You have his number?
You can call him at 631-681-1910 or email him at vivianilaw.com.
Wait, what was that last part?
What, email?
Yeah, what's email?
vivianilaw.com.
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything old is new again with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Welcome to Fright Night. For real. Back, spawn of Satan. Oh, really? You have to have faith for this to work on me, Mr. Vincent.
Fright Night. We are going to go back now and look at some thrillers on Everything Old is New Again. Thrillers that we think that you would love to give a try to, and we think would be great as being new, something new.
Something old that's new.
Correct, that we're going to make and see if we can make the sales or the rentals of these movies go up.
Yeah, are we getting a kickback for any of this?
No, I guess we should have done a deal before we did this show.
We should have thought this one through. Yeah.
Anyway, that was Fright Night from 1985. They actually did a remake in 2011, which was absolutely horrible.
But you like Fright Night? Is Fright Night one of the
original Fright Night?
You're recommending?
Absolutely, with Roddy McDowall and Chris Sarandon. Is that his name? He was in Princess Bride too.
Yeah,
he plays a great modern Dracula. Or a vampire, I should say. And it's a vampire story from a kid's angle, a high school kid's angle, and he sees something nefarious going on across the way, looking across the way, from his window at night in the house next door. He learns about vampires. He learns how the rules of vampires. He watches this Mr. Vincent, what do you call him? Mr. Vincent was Roddy McDowall's character. He's a host of horror movies on television. He's just an actor, but he enlists this actor because he believes that he's really a vampire hunter, and they go and engage and try to rid the neighborhood or the world, if you will, of this particular vampire.
Which is weird, because I thought Roddy McDowall had died by that time.
85, and it was he did such a great job with this role. It's a weird role for him in that he's not the hero, but he's supposed to be the hero, but he has to play an actor that's really afraid, but he's got to get courage somehow. He's interested in, these the demonic things that goes on in life, but he's never had an experience with them. And meanwhile, here are these high school kids looking for his help, and I don't know, it's hard to explain. Again, it's another one of these that are kind of hard to explain.
Right. A few of these are, but no, you're talking about it passionately enough where I'd like to see it.
Really get a kick out of it. You really would like Fright Night. Let's listen to something that I know that Dave really is a fan of, and this is Blue Velvet. Let's just listen to the review.
Our next movie is named Blue Velvet, and already this movie has caused a firestorm around the country. The movie takes place in a small town where a young couple stumbles over a mystery that begins with the discovery of a severed human ear and leads them to suspect that the ear might belong to the missing husband of a local nightclub singer.
I think what's exciting about the film, and it is challenging, is it starts out with flowers and sunlight, and it's a happy little town, and then we dig deeper and we find out it's a nasty town, or at least a couple of people are nasty. And I sat there, and this did for me, and I use the Psycho example again, this did for me what Psycho did as a lot younger, which is eyes open and, oh my God, we're really getting in over our heads. And that's an experience which is challenging, shocking, but mesmerizing, and I like the picture.
Now, let's be...
Thanks, Doug. I have nothing to add to that. That's exactly what I was going to say. What
Those are our predecessors. That's Siskel and Ebert. Now, let's review Siskel and Ebert's review on Blue Velvet. Did you think that was accurate or not?
Yes. I have nothing to add now.
Well, I'll tell you,
totally stole my thunder.
Ebert did not like the movie. He said that that it was just a cheap, horrible discussion of the slavery of this girl. What's her name? That
Isabella Rossellini.
Right, Isabella Rossellini, that becomes the slave of Dennis Hopper.
Well, here's the thing. That I do know when it was released, it did not get critical acclaim across the board. But with time, like a fine wine...
why do you like it? Tell us why.
It has become a very critically acclaimed movie. I like it because it's unique. It didn't follow a script that mysteries and movies about the underworld and the seamliness of what's laying beneath something beautiful. It's not cliched at all. First of all, Dennis Hopper. All right, I don't know if some of your younger folks don't know Dennis Hopper, but he was an actor in the '60s. He was one of those kind of rebel actors. Just did what he wanted, and just kind of a lunatic. And that's
Easy Rider.
Easy Rider, exactly. Yeah. And he plays a character named Frank in this movie, who's legitimately psychotic, and a psychotic, sexually perverse madman, and it's his world that the kid Kyle MacLachlan, right? He ended up in Twin Peaks. By the way, this is a David Lynch movie. It was sort of a precursor to the Twin Peaks TV series that was done. But anyway, they stumble into this underworld of this seemingly very nice, small, quiet town. And as Gene Siskel said, you kind of sit there and you're fascinated by how disgusting and horrible things tend to get as the movie goes along. You don't think it's going to get any worse, and it keeps getting worse. And just the way it's shot, the music that's played, and the whole mood of the movie, for me at that time was very new, very different. And I think today you'll still find that to be true, even though it's, maybe 30 years, 35 years later.
Yeah, that movie came out in 1986. The budget was $6 million. It made $8.6 million. That's it.
Yeah, nobody saw it.
No one has seen it. So it's, but meanwhile, I've heard of it, and I guess I've heard of it because of what you just said, is that it was a little depraved, and people didn't see it because of that.
Well, and then David Lynch became very successful, so that people started to rediscover Blue Velvet.
Okay, I will definitely give that a shot, but certainly not.
Don't see it with the family.
I was going to say not with the family. No. When they're on vacation or out with the mother-in-laws or something, I'll do that. In the meantime, this is a little the circus theme of the Ringling Brothers Voluntary Circus. Sounds so happy and peppy and bursting with love. The only problem is there's a movie that's
reference.
Made
I got it.
that is called Freaks from 1932. Yes. Dave and I went to go see that. together
in
when
1932.
We were not going to say when, but when we were kids.
We saw the premiere in the red carpet.
You sure did. At the Balcony Theater in Huntington, which is now the Paramount, where they have quite a number of live bands.
It was like free, wasn't it? I think it was.
We were ahead of our time because we really looked for different things to do. And who goes at 16 or whatever it was to see a movie from 1932?
Other than A Couple of Freaks.
Couple of Freaks. Listen to a little bit about what this is.
We didn't lie to you, folks. We told you we had living, breathing monstrosities. You laughed at them, shuddered at them, and yet, but for the accident of birth, you might be even as they are. Their code is a law unto themselves. Offend one, and you offend them all.
So those are real freaks, and they called them freaks back in those days from the circus
sideshow.
You would go see the sideshow. You would go ahead of before you went into the theater to see the circus. You'd see this in the little hallways. I guess you'd have little booths with the tall man, the short man, the bearded lady, the midget. I hate to use these, but that's what they were all called. All these different. The bearded lady, what was it? Half man, half woman. All different kind of characters. Those characters now act in this movie, in this thriller. It is well worth your time. It's eerie. It's odd, but it's heartwarming, and it's about community and their community and how they get along versus others who are prejudiced against them and the evil that others do to them and how they defend themselves. It's really a lot of it's not going to say a lot of fun, but it's a unique movie. Yes. We'll be back. Listen to this a little bit about from Fright Night. So, as going back to Freaks for a moment. What was when you first saw that movie? What was did you get freaked out? It's a crazy word to say, but what did you think of it?
I was impressed by the fact that these people were real life circus performers, sideshow performers, and they were in a movie. So I thought that was really incredible, especially for 1932.
Right.
And on top of that, I thought the acting was good. It was a very kind of heartwarming story.
Yeah.
And it was kind of inspiring.
It was. It was analogous to, I don't know what to say, to nerds or to maybe the disabled or something. I don't know. All I could say is this: a community that is ostracized in some way or another.
Right.
They were able to bond together, and as you heard in the trailer, they make their own kind of rules, and they lived under those, and they made a family for themselves, and if someone did something wrong, there was some consequences.
Do you watch American Horror Story?
I have seen it. Yes.
Okay, and they did a whole season on the Freak Show. Did you see that?
I didn't see that. I will watch that
because now that you brought up the movie Freaks, which I had totally forgotten about until this show. Definitely and heavily influenced by the movie was this season of American Horror Story. If you like Freaks, you might like that.
Okay, because I know American Horror Story every season kind of does a new line.
This was completely about a sideshow.
Wow, I will definitely. What would you say? Binge watch that,
yes,
and get back to. And there's certainly a show there about that and about the sideshow. My grandfather used to tell me about how he saw them, and
really,
it was something of the day. It was a period piece. I'll be right back, and everything old is new again, and continue discussing movies that you've not seen, but maybe you should.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
What does Azazel mean? Now, my dictionary says that evil spirit of the wilderness.
Walk away, Mr. Hobbs.
But nothing in this world can help him solve this case.
There are angels. Some of these angels were cast down, and a few of the fallen were punished by being deprived of form.
Come on, get out of here.
And each touch passes the soul of a killer into someone new.
Well, I believe what I see, and I'm still trying to get my mind around what I just saw.
Some things, pal, you shouldn't know.
Time is on.
If you've seen that movie, you know that is an eerie song, because what that is a thriller that is called Fallen, and it's from 1998 with Denzel Washington. We're back here on Everything Old is New Again, talking about thrillers that maybe you probably haven't seen, because this movie only made $25 million that I saw, and I think if you see it, you will be well rewarded for the 2 hours you spend watching this movie.
2 hours?
Yes, because that song, Tom, is sung by the evil character that is a spirit, if you will, of evil that goes from one body to the next. If it's in you, it commits a bad act, can touch another person, and its essence goes to the other person. So how do you... Now we have a police officer trying to solve murders committed by this entity, led by Denzel Washington, and how do you find this character?
I love Denzel. I mean, just for that, I'd probably watch it.
There's a scene where that song is sung by one person, then a little kid, then an old lady.
So everybody knows the song.
They're each being touched by the spirit. As he's walking down the road in a city, he's observing. This character is revealing himself to him and his trick to Denzel Washington, that he goes from one character to the next, to the next,
So
to the
is
next.
this scary? Were you
very
frightened?
scary?
Okay.
Because this is
did you, after the movie, were you spooked after that? Like when you went to bed?
Let's put it this way. I've seen the movie once. It's still with me to this day.
Right, but I'm trying to find out how scared you were by the movie.
Enough to I didn't go right to bed after this. I think I put in Seinfeld after this, quite frankly. And maybe The Honeymooners after that, because this and it has a not such a great ending for some of these characters too. It's an amazing thriller. I think you really would enjoy. I'm going to hesitate when I say enjoy, but enjoy if you like thrillers. That's what it's all about.
Okay, and if you like being scared, it sounds to me like this is a good one for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Doesn't it sound like an odd way,
does.
and how do you destroy this entity? It goes from one person to the next. Speaking of being thrilled and thrillers, we are thrilled to announce that Everything Old is New Again is now broadcasting on WKCE in the Knoxville, Tennessee vicinity. And I'll tell you what, when you want the story right the first time, you tune to 1120 WKCE. We're on every Saturday at noon, so you won't be frightened at that time of day.
No, broad daylight to listen to a couple of spirits talking about spooky movies. Hey, did you know that Knoxville is home to the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame?
I did not know that. I didn't even know they had a Women's Hall of Fame. That's terrific.
There you go.
All
right there in Knoxville. And the University of Tennessee.
Oh, there you go.
Volunteers.
Well, that's that we see every so often on TV, right? With the big football powerhouse, are they not?
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's great. So thank you for joining the network and of Everything Old is New Again, WKCE. We're looking forward to show after show after show. And this show is going to now turn back to an actor that's in the next two movies that I'll introduce to you right now.
That's Swanee River. That's right. Now, who's the composer? Your time's running out. Hurry up. You better take a guess. Ed Norton.
That's right. The one and only Ed Norton is in the next two movies.
No. This is Edward Norton.
Ed is short for Edward. What do you mean?
It's it's a real Edward Norton.
How do you name someone Ed Norton?
Maybe his parents were big honeymooners.
Are they out of their mind? That's. I mean, come on.
You would love to be named Ed Norton. Don't give me that. You wish your name was that.
You gotta walk around with that silly hat all the time. I mean, come
work
on.
in a sewer.
Yeah, you gotta work it. All right, so we'll turn our attention to the quote real Ed Norton, who is in two movies that we feel really are worth your time.
One I know that you did not see.
I did not see this one.
No, not you. No one saw this.
Everything's gotten so strange, Bob. The only people I trust are you and guys I grew up with.
What do we say to him?
We'll say nothing. He's going to hell for 7 years. What I'm going to do, wish him luck? I watched him ruin his life. The last 10 years, I've been watching him get deeper and deeper. I got one idea, but I need a big favor from you.
Years from now, you gather your family together, you tell them the whole story. Who you are, where you come from. And then you ask them if they know how lucky they are to be there.
Interesting. 25th Hour, starring Ed Norton, Philip Seymour Hoffman, directed by Spike Lee, 2002. Why do we watch this movie?
Well, first of all, this has got to be one of the least publicized and probably least profitable Spike Lee movies, I think.
Well, budget $5 million, it earned $23 million, so it was profitable, but
profitable, but not like a typical Spike Lee movie. Now, this one, I love this movie. And honestly, I saw it. It was released shortly after 9/11, and in the movie itself, the Ground Zero actually plays. I don't want to get too artsy here, but it's almost like it's a character in the film. It's mentioned a few times, but that's not really what the story is about. But you can't help but feel the presence of the Ground Zero area during the film. So that's one thing that kind of hits you, and I think sets the tone for what's happening, which is Edward Norton, one of my favorite actors, plays just one of the best roles he's played. He's a drug dealer, a likable drug dealer, who's going to prison. He's going to prison for 7 years, and he's got 24 hours till he starts serving. And he uses, so basically this is, tries to be sort of like a real-time type movie, what happens to him in those 24 hours. So it's about, it's about coming to terms with the consequences of your actions, trying to reconnect with your father, trying to find out who framed you for this crime, hanging out with your friends for one last night. It sounds, as I'm describing it, very superficial, but it's incredibly emotional, and I think that you can relate to what this character and other characters like Philip Seymour Hoffman, and who else is in it? Barry.
Rosario Dawson's in it as well. Anna Paquin's in it.
Right. But what all these characters are going through, you feel on a very deep level. He's got to find out who's going to keep his dog while he's gone. He's got to worry about his girlfriend. He's worried about getting raped in prison, so he asks one of his friends to basically beat the crap out of him so that he's incredibly ugly. It's all of these things that you think about in planning for the next 7 years of hell, basically.
Wow.
It's got a weird ending, too. I love the ending. Highly recommend it.
All right. I'm going to have to move really quickly to The Illusionist, 2006 film that I think is something that is well worth your time. I'm not going to play a clip, but it was a clip of Edward Norton basically talking about how he prepared for this movie. It's a movie about an illusionist, which is a magician back in 1889, and how he uses his skill as a magician to frame a fellow magician for a crime that actually doesn't commit, that doesn't happen, so that he can win the girl and win the day. Actually, we might have a moment. Let's just play a little bit, see what he says. Actually, I'm going to just play the theme song and talk about the fact that using the magic that he has and the skills that he has with the magic is something that is unique to this, because you don't know if he's a spirit, you don't know if he's really doing the magic, or you don't know if the magic is something that is just a tool to frame his enemy. It's really a great movie. So we'll see if this will work. No, it doesn't. All right. So anyway, when we talk about these movies, we're happy to say that it's time for you, as a listener of Everything Old is New Again, to try to get involved and see if you can suggest to us movies that you think should be resurrected, if you will. Do so.
You want to run down the names real quick? We've talked the movies.
You don't have the time. You can go back to the podcast. Everything Old is New Again.
Hit rewind. Hit rewind.
We'll be back next week. We can hit the names now, actually, if you like. You got to take a look at the clock sometimes. But we have, for this section, we have Forbidden Planet, which is great. Free Enterprise, The Abyss, right? And then we go back to Fright Night, Blue Velvet, Freaks, what else? 25th Hour, and The Illusionist. So there's enough there to sink your teeth into that it'll keep you busy, at least for the weekend. Look forward to hearing back from you on everythingoldisnewagain.biz or oldnewagain at AOL.com. That's oldnewagain at AOL.com. We'll be back next week with a discussion of movies with a message that you've not seen, but maybe you should. Come on back. Thanks for listening.